Welcome to the AirCon Vault. Here, you can find the recordings of the live streams from AirWiggle's audio conference. These are made free thanks to our sponsors: A Sound Effect, Aftertouch Audio, Room Library, Fmod, Game Audio Learning, Game Sound Con, Pillow Hearts, Rev Rooms, Sound Cuts, Strata from Audio Kinetic, and AirWiggles, the online home for audio people. We hope you enjoy the video.
I don't have a crazy makeup today. Was not feeling like that. I'm like a bit muted down today, but yeah, apart from doing crazy makeup, I also run an audio agency here in Ukraine. I'm a co-founder, as it's stated on the screen. And I also do brand management for our agency because I have a background in marketing. You're gonna see this a lot in this talk today, like the influence of that. And I'm also an art director, or maybe rather a creative director. It's always like a bit tough to differentiate those things. So I do creative direction on our projects. So basically what I'm gonna talk today about is mainly what I do, because I don't compose music myself. That's the area of expertise of my partner. But I carry on all the pre-production stage of our projects. And so we're gonna talk about this a lot today, because pre-production stage is actually like super important for creating a soundtrack that people will remember. So hi, composer from Taiwan, nice to meet you. Entry-level electronic video game composer, aspiring sound designer and composer from Poland, second year student of game dev school, nice. Sound designer composer from Czechia, hi Czechia, also one of my go-to countries because part of my family lives there. Audio engineer and producer for Ghana, wow. Sound designer but aiming to diversify skill set. Music theory is a step slope to climb. Agree. I tried to do some music theory courses, but then full-scale invasion started and I lost all of my motivation, but I hope to get back to it at some point. Sound designer for fun, sometimes money, and music producer for hobby, nice. Gameplay, technical, creative audio designer and composer, great. Freelance media composer from Finland. Also visited a couple times, love the country, love the nature, was in Kayani last year, amazing, loved it. Mostly orchestral stuff. I do composition, film, TV, video games, audio engineer, audio post-production for film, TV, and games, cool. Composer, classical and metal mostly, metalheads unite. From Sweden. Of course you're from Sweden. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Foley, among other things. Moldova here. Hi, Moldova. Neighbors here. Sound designer, composer, live sound engineer from Texas, United States. Wow. It should be quite early where you are living right now, right? Or, yeah. I'm not really good in time zones. That's mostly the reason why I was almost late to my talk. I got lost in that. So great to see all of you in the chat today. So I think we should hop right in and start. Oh yeah, 7:30 a.m. I feel so sorry for you. 7:30 on Sunday. That sucks. Sucks for most of the days, to be honest, but for Sunday. I'm gonna abandon the chat for some time. I will come back to you guys later because I cannot do this simultaneously with my slides, but I'll come back. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the question feature so it doesn't get lost, and I will come back to them later. And checking in from Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah, Scotland. Love Scotland. Never been to it, but one of my dearest friends is from Scotland. She's from Dundee. So yeah, why should we, I think we should start talking about some stuff. So we, as an agency, we produce what we like to call signature game audio that builds memories for players. This is our kind of stuff to do, as I love to introduce myself to people on conferences. I say that we create iconic shit, which is good. When you work in game dev, you can be rather, free to talk some stuff like this. So, and today I will try to share my vision of how to create iconic soundtracks that make a lasting impression on the audience. So, again, we're working mostly with indie games, and that's challenging working on an indie game, not just for us, but mostly for the developers themselves. And usually when people tell me that they are indie developers, I say that I feel so sorry for them. Because for the years that I'm working with the game dev industry, which been got 6 years marking this year, which is crazy for me. I learned quite a couple of things about indie developers, and I'm gonna share them with you because I think many of you might work already with indie developers, or maybe will work at some moment of your career. And it's important to understand your clients and understand their pain points, because this is how you can tailor your service better to them. And this is mostly how you can establish deeper connection with them. And this facilitates the collaboration process like so much. So the struggle for indie developers is real. First of all, high competition. Competition is extremely high this years, especially after the COVID, because that's when this whole bubble started to grow. And then I think like most of you know what happened to game dev industry like last year, and like it's still happening. Like there was like a collapse because it was a bubble. It's like with .coms in early 2000s. COVID brought all this money to game dev, and people realized that, wow, we can make money there, and it's very easy. And that's why more and more products started developing. But then, of course, when there are too many, not everyone can last. Many companies either shut down in recent time, or like really decreased their volumes of production. So this affected everyone, and us audio professionals as well, of course. But even now, when situation is rather difficult for game dev, there are some tendencies to restoration, and like more than 35 indie games are released on Steam daily. I mean, the competition is high, and most of those games aren't good, to be honest, but still it creates this buzz, and it makes everything more challenging for indie developers to really get into the spotlight. Then limited budgets, pretty much self-explanatory, and it affects us, of course, again, as audio professionals. Some people tend to choose less, like smaller budgets for the audio part. Like, we will not go deep into details why the situation is like that, but this is something you have to understand and negotiate early on with the clients. But you need to understand that they are literally frightened to spend money because they have a limited amount of that. So, and the next one is the need to engage. Indie teams need to attract the audience, usually themselves, if they want to succeed. Even if they aim to find the publisher, they still need to build a community early on, because many publishers nowadays require some amount of wishlists on Steam, or some amount of audience on socials and stuff like this. So these three pillars are like the most painful points for indies. And why you need to understand them, not just to like better communicate with the teams, but also to understand that a good soundtrack might help. And this is a really strong point for negotiations with your potential clients or with your ongoing clients, because soundtrack can really become a golden ticket if done right. Because soundtrack may be one of the few things in game development that can be done on the level of, I don't want to say like AAA, but on the level of some like iconic projects, while other parts of the game may not be on the same level of execution due to, again, limited budgets, limited teams. But we all understand that creating a soundtrack requires smaller team, maybe even one person. Of course, if you want to do like a full-blown orchestration, it will require a whole team. But like if we are talking about soundtracks that are created with virtual instruments, like it can be done with one person, and it can be done on a limited budget, like with a smaller scope, for example. There are many tips and tricks how to organize that, how to organize the scope that way that you are not losing money, but also indies can pay less. And if done right, it might be something that will put a game on the spotlight. But what makes a soundtrack good? This is the main question everybody, I think, is asking themselves. And again, some points for you. I imagine that you already have your answers to this question, but to systemize that, I will share my vision on, like, not only our team's vision on what makes soundtrack good, and also this is something for you to use in negotiations with your clients. So first of all, it's unique and recognizable. So a soundtrack that helps a game stand out from the crowd. This is something that you need to negotiate, because many clients, they come to you with a list of references, or even sometimes asking you to create something as close to something else as possible. This happened to us like many times. And this is the first thing that you need to explain to clients, that if you're aiming to, recreating someone's success, it's not unique and you're already losing this battle. And also, if you rely on references too much, you will create something that it's not new, something that is maybe even cliche in a niche. And I know that many of us strive for unique things because we also want to bring in our creativity in our work. But this is something that you need to establish as your position early on in communication with the client. Then it's also a soundtrack that evokes emotions and associations, because this is the thing that will create a lasting emotional impact. I think, like, I'm 100% sure that every one of us have at least one soundtrack, or even if we take this thing like more in a more broad context, we all have this one song, or like maybe several of them, that when you listen to them, it brings like you in emotional state that happened to you like somewhere in the past, because music affects our subconsciousness and via those associations, and can bring you in a whole different time phase. And this is what you need to, again, negotiate with the clients, and also use in your practice. Think about associations early on. Try to use musical codes that are clear and easy to understand by the audience. I don't mean that you need to create like easy stuff. Again, you need to be unique in that. But the whole idea is to think of how you can mix those musical codes in a way that will be unique. And of course, The good soundtrack is the one that enhances the gameplay. And I mean, not just supporting the atmosphere, this is the ultimate idea, but also intensifies immersion and complements mechanics. This is sometimes what developers can forget, tend to forget, and we as professionals need to again negotiate this early on. That's why we need more data about the game when starting working on this. This is all pre-production things. You need to know as much as possible about the game, including the mechanics, because sometimes not just with using adaptive music for people that might not know what's that's again music that adapts to what's happening in a game. It dynamically changes. It can be linked to some events on the screen, to some mechanics again, and some changes basically. So you need to understand how the game works to create a soundtrack that will not just fit in the background, but will be an active part of the game to engage the player like more and to make this lasting impression. And while we talked about this, now let's get into more, I don't want to call it technical, because again, I'm talking mostly from marketing background, more of ideological things. But this is something that I want to introduce you as a concept. You may know some things about this already, but this term audio DNA, it comes from audio branding, and this is also something that we create in our agency. We create audio brands for companies, businesses, apps, and stuff. And we basically brought this concept of an audio DNA to game audio, and this is how we operate as an agency. And creating an audio DNA is one of the most important stages in our project. So what's an audio DNA? This is probably the only slide that has so many words on it in this whole presentation, but I wanted to make it a little bit more theoretical, and I wanted for you to have this whole information written on the screen for you to perceive it more easy. So game audio DNA is an audible expression of the game. So it's basically the whole essence of the game in an audio form. It is aligned with vision and objectives, target audience, visuals, game mechanics, and also marketing and promotion. So as you can see, more than just atmosphere and visuals and story goes into creating audio DNA. When creating it, you need to also understand what's the whole vision and mission of the game is, why people will play it, what's the whole promise of it. But also you have to understand who is the target audience, so you can tailor everything so that they can perceive it again more easily. And marketing promotion, why? Because you need to understand how the music, if we talk about music mostly at this moment, because the talk is about soundtracks, how soundtrack would be used in everything that is linked to the game. So not just in the gameplay, but outside of it as well. So audio DNA, usually it's a track, usually it's a main theme that uniquely combines various audio elements. Again, we all know that there is nothing new that we can create. Everything that we will create was created before us. But the thing is that we can uniquely combine elements like, that key, instrumentation, arrangement, melodic, rhythmic patterns, voice, sound effects, etc. But you need to have clear intent behind every single audio element. If you choose a key, you need to understand why you are choosing a minor or like a major key. Because, for example, if you want to create something like something joyful, it doesn't have to be a major key. You can use some variations of minor keys to create a joyful expression, but you need to understand why you're doing this, and you need to explain this to clients as well. You need to be really careful with instrumentation, because what you are taking into consideration is not just how the game looks, but also you need to take into consideration how the competition sounds, and also the platform where the game will be played, because instrumentation will be different for mobile games and, for example, console games, because again, mobiles, smaller speakers, some instruments sound like shit on those speakers, so you need to understand that early on. And basically, audio DNA in game audio, usually main theme, it should define how all game. Basically, main theme is the guiding light for everything that will be created in a game. Everything should follow the lead of main theme. Doesn't mean that everything will sound the same, of course not. Every track, every stinger or jingle, however you want to call this, should be aligned in some way with main theme, either through instrumentation or some rhythmic patterns or some usage of melodies. Again, we all know about leitmotifs, right? So using main theme and the task that every audio asset in a game should perform, using that, you will create like holistic audio, like game audio experience. And basically, creation and audio DNA allows a memorable, immersive gaming experience, because you're basically taking your player by the hands and you support all of their journey, you know, by being in a way predictable, in a way, you know, easy to understand, easy to make links and connections, but also being like performative in a way. So, and another thing, creating an audio DNA is a major step in collaboration with the client, because when you create this track, you basically show them all the elements that you will use when creating all audio assets. Sometimes audio DNA doesn't work for sound design. For that, it's good to create sound design guidelines that align with audio DNA, especially if you have some tonal sound effects. But basically, by showing this combination of elements in an audio DNA to your developer, you manage their expectations. It's good to usually create several of those, so they can choose whichever fits most. And it's a really nice thing to help align with the client. So I cannot stress enough how important is creating an audio DNA. And again, what it affects? It affects, of course, gameplay themes, sound design, as I mentioned, but also it works outside of the gameplay context, because audio DNA also affects how trailers will sound, because not in every case you can use main theme in a trailer. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. Sometimes the task is different for the trailer, but again, aligning it with the main theme, using the same audio elements or some of them in a combination, will already deliver the main message, the essence of the game to the audience, to potential players, and already form an expectation, and already will deliver a promise of the game. So again, I cannot stress enough how like you should not think how game audio, specifically soundtracks, should complement the gameplay. You need to create basically a brand asset, something that will deliver the whole meaning behind the game to an audience. So this is why audio DNA affects trailers and social media content likewise. Again, remember, indie developers have to engage audience early on, and social media is one of the ways to do that. And social media needs what? Right content. And right now, where developers are finding their audience, TikTok. And TikTok isn't like audio visual platform. So this is crucial to create, again, adaptations that are working for each specific piece of content, but still remain aligned with the main theme, audio DNA, to create a holistic experience and affect the audience in a predictable way. Let's put it this way. So what you need to create audio DNA? Of course, clear vision of the project. First of all, like in your brief to clients, the brief that you send the client in the beginning of the collaboration, you need to know, like, the major question is why. Again, this is something that I hold near and dear to my heart from my marketing background. The main question in marketing is why you're doing this, why people will buy it, why every part of the product is the way it is. So why the game needs audio, which role it will play in the game, and again, how it will align with other elements. So you need to understand all of the elements, the visuals, the mechanics, the characters, the story. Also, like, you need to know about the competition and stuff like that. So, and also you need to know limitations. Early on, this is something that you need to discuss with the developer, because limitations can be not just budget limitations. This is, of course, important for you to organize the scope in a way that is comfortable for you, not, working for bread and water, but also some maybe technical limitations, or as I mentioned before, the platform. There are some platform limitations and stuff like this. Then, again, marketing stuff, research on competitors. You need to do your homework on how others use audio in their games. You need to define their strengths and their weaknesses, and you need to define what are cliches of a niche. Because talking about, for example, Silent Hill 2 with Akira Yamaoka creating like iconic soundtrack. Why it became iconic? Because horror games have cliched sound that is stuck with this niche of the games. It's some kind of dark ambient drone, some like sound design, spooky atmosphere and stuff. And there Akira Yamaoka bam brings a pop rock to it. That's why it blew so much, because that was like a breath of a fresh air, and that time. And of course, he had some ambient in there, and something to be still in the same niche, something that is easy to understand for the audience, something that they expect, but then bam, some really cool tracks that are like standalone cool tracks, So you need to understand how others use audio, so you can use it in a different, in a more unique way, And how to do that? Basically, go on markets, listen to the competitors, search for comments on their audio. So this can give you a lot of fresh information to think of, and something to make sure that you will help the game to stand out of from the crowd. And of course, last but not least, understanding your audience. You need to know to who you deliver a soundtrack, because your end client is not the developer you're working with. Your true client is the audience of the developer, and you need to understand this audience to tailor something that will fit in their hearts and minds, something that will live with them onward. So you need to understand the needs of the target audience that game will cover, and which experience they will have. And by need, and again, this is something that you need to ask about. This whole thing, this everything you need to ask about your client early on in collaboration. You need to understand what is the role of the game in the lives of the audience. So will it provide comfort, or will it provide a place to receive an adrenaline, or is it like something like adventurous to get some new experiences and stuff like this? You need to understand this so you could put that promise into soundtrack you're creating, and of course which experiences they will have, so you can highlight it with your music. And I mentioned this before, you might already know and use those things already in your practice. It can come together intuitively. This is what happened to my partner before we organized an agency and started working together, so I could do this pre-production for him, give this whole information for him to work with. So before that, he purely operated on music intuition, and I'm 100% sure you have it already as well, because you are composers, you have this intuition in you. But before starting working, before opening the DAW, please sit down and write your thoughts on a paper or on a Google Doc. Write down your ideas and ask yourself why you're choosing those ideas. Why do you have them in your head? What every idea will serve, in the context of the game. Make some kind of a simple document. It doesn't have to be, this like a million pages document, or being something super bureaucratic and stuff. But just write down your ideas and try to understand why you're choosing them. And best if you do all of this combined with these parts that I described before. So you can have a clear vision. First of all, it will help you to stay focused on the things that matter when creating a soundtrack. But also, again, it's something that will facilitate your communication with the client, because you can provide them with this document. You should present it to them. So it's great if you have a call and you go through the document explaining your ideas, because again, even before opening DAW, you will already find a common ground, and you can do some tweaks before starting to write music, which saves you a ton of time and nerves, to be honest. So, and a case study. And this is actually a great example of a case study. Why? Because when Vlad, my partner, composer, started working on this project, he started working on music intuition. But then I came in and I helped him to organize this music intuition of his, organize everything into a document, and organize all of his ideas and find explanations for them, and check if this aligns with the competition, with the promise of the game and stuff like this. So we did this post factum basically, but I will explain you how it helped just in a minute. So we're going to talk about the game Foxtail. It's an indie game. What a surprise. So it's atmospheric and highly atmospheric and immersive classic point and click adventure that is inspired by the mid 90s games. And it's a story of a young fox, Leah, who embarks on a journey to find a cure for her grandmother. So basically, she comes on vacation to her grandmother, to her house in the woods, just to learn that the grandma is sick. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna try to find a foxtail, which is a mushroom that's supposed to cure the disease of the grandma. So it's like exploration game. There are forests, farms, caves, many creatures, so many characters. And also, while being on this adventure, she also uncovers the secrets of her grandfather's mystical past, because grandpa also embarked on the same adventure, but he never returned. So also she tries to understand what happened to the grandpa with whom she was really close. So just to give you a feel of the game, this is how it looks. And it's gonna look like the game is still in early access because the developers were highly affected by the invasion. So there were some like postponement in development. But when we started working on the game, it looked like this. So it already, I think, like you already might have a feel of the game. It's warm, it's cozy, the colors are like super warm and vibrant. It's classic pixel game. So yeah, it already gives you ideas. And I will show you a part of the main theme that we created, like that my partner created in the first place when he started working on the project. And they spent like a month with the developer trying to find a right sound to it. And they basically spent this much time on it to find a common ground. But then as an audio DNA, it really basically, became like a guiding light for everything else in this game, and it was crucial. So I will give you just a look into how it sounds. So now you have an idea about how it sounds. And I'm sorry. And now let's dissect it as an audio DNA. And again, this is something that we did later together with my partner to understand why it sounded like it sounded. Of course, he had all the data about the game, the competition and stuff in his head, but I was like, okay, let's sit and write it all down. So again, mood and atmosphere. This is basically a guideline for your maybe like your future like documents with an audio DNA explanation and stuff. So you can use this guideline as a starting point, because you may add something. Of course, feel free, because there are no like strict rules on how to create this documentation. Feel free to add anything you feel is right. So first of all, mood and atmosphere of the DNA is that it's cozy, it's nostalgic, it's warm feelings, and it's also playfulness. Because even though the premise of the game, like the grandma is sick, we need to find a cure, might be kind of depressive, but still the focus is on that, the fact that it's summer, it's vacations, it's grandma, it's a place that is really meaningful for the main character. It's where she spent her childhood, where she bonded with her grandparents. So it's really cozy and nostalgic, you know. So this is something that we needed to take into account. Then music genre. This was the main point of negotiation with the client, because he wanted the game to sound just like those, you know, mid 90s games, like pixel games, point and click games. And this is where my partner was like, no, we should not do that, because we're gonna sound just like everyone else, and this is not what we want to do. So they found a compromise. So it's a casual orchestral music with not too lively instruments. So to still, you know, it doesn't sound like a full-blown orchestral music, you know. It's kind of, you know, this not that organic, not that ideal, it's not too lively, so it still creates this bond with the pixel art and stuff. Then instrumentation. Piano. Why? Because we already knew that there will be a lot of work on this project, and piano is a really versatile instrument. Then harp, strings, acoustic guitar to get some that, you know, organic feeling, really friendly feeling, cozy feeling, because it's one of the musical codes behind acoustic guitar. Ethnic percussion and woodwinds to accentuate on the nature, because almost like every like location in the game is somewhere on like on nature, in woods, on swamps, lakes, and stuff like this. And also xylophone to get again a little bit of that playfulness, you know, to accentuate on that. Key. This was an interesting choice. So it's E major that changes to E minor with some scale variations depending on the track. Because even though the main theme is in E major, not everything should be that joyful in a game. So the key slightly changes, but still, you know, creates this holistic feel to it. So everything is almost in the same key with some scale variations. And then chord progressions are almost the same throughout the game. For different characters, for example, they have different chord progressions. So you like my partner was highlighting that something is linked to a character, not just by using some leitmotifs, you know, but by using just chord progressions to highlight that this theme is linked to this character. So to basically organize everything in the minds of the audience. And then, of course, leitmotifs. I think this is also pretty much self-explanatory. So spread your wings and fly, aka main theme, aka audio DNA of this project. What it defined? It defined, of course, location themes. This is the major thing. Character themes, because there are many characters and we wanted to differentiate them. Narrative highlights. This is actually something really cool, because soundtracks sometimes tells more about what's happening on the screen that is explained on the screen itself. And this became some Easter eggs for the audience to discuss, to try to solve, to understand. So it's a great thing also to engage the audience. Sound effects, of course, singers, social media content, trailers, pretty self-explanatory. We created over 90 minutes of music over 5 years. And without creating this document, without creating audio DNA that will define how everything sounds, it would be nearly impossible to, you know, stay consistent working on this soundtrack, because 5 years is a huge time window. And, you know, everything evolves. The project evolves. There are eight chapters in it. My partner, as a composer, evolved throughout these 5 years. And of course, he wanted to bring something new, to try new techniques, to try new arrangement choices and stuff like this. But if he did this, the game would not sound holistic. this is why it's good that he had a document to come back after, I don't know, 6 months of a pause, a year of a pause on working on a project, and he could open the document, read it, understand what's needed, and even if he or the developer wanted to change something to spice things up, they still needed to consider every change and fit it in the existing audio DNA guidelines. So this is why I'm so I really recommend you to make a document like this, because you never know how long the project will take. Or maybe if you even create something and you give it to a client and you're done, you never know whether there will be some continuation of the collaboration. So it's always good to have it on hand. So I will just show a few clips. We are almost ending. I think I'm still on time. So I will just show you some examples on how those variations of the audio DNA sound. I will make it a little bit louder. And here, it's actually one of the first Easter eggs, because even though it's a location theme, it has a hint from the main theme that is connected to one specific, extremely important character. And this is how it links the location theme with the character theme. And some players noticed it and they were like, okay, I see what you're doing. And it sparked some discussions in the community. So this is an example of a character theme of a really grumpy grandpa. And Leah, she's a bit intimidated by him in the beginning, but then she gets to know him, and the theme changes throughout chapters. But I think you will feel that even though he's grumpy, you still can realize that he's kind of good, you know, even before it unfolds in the game. It's one of my favorite things, by the way. So next, narrative highlight. Again, something that I slightly show in the first video, but here it's more obvious. So basically, this is the main melody from the main theme. It sounds a little bit different, but it's already linking this location with the story, because this location was a hideaway for Leah and her grandpa. Spoiler, main theme is connected to grandpa. If you're gonna play this game, like, sorry for that, but I will uncover this now. So when you enter the location, you don't know that it's a place where Leah and her grandpa used to bond, but it gives you this feeling when you listen to the soundtrack. Even if you don't realize this, it already tells you a story with more that is happening on the screen. So, sorry, next slide. And this is how we adapted the soundtrack for the trailer for a second chapter. It's super connected to ships, and I think you will see that. And it's the music that was not featured in the game. So again, sometimes for trailers, you need to create something else, but still make sure it's aligned with everything that sounds in the game. So this theme is more dreamy, again, using some like super prominent elements from the main theme, but it's more like dreamy because this is the ship. It's about it's about the sail. It's about continuing the adventure, exploring new locations and stuff like that. And an example for social media content. This is also one of my favorites and also one of the audience favorites. And it's an interesting example. So this is a cool example because the character plays the hand drum, and the hand drum is not a part of an audio DNA. And here we could not use any other instruments because they're not in the picture. But still, what he made the sound like this music in that way that it uses many many elements of the main theme, the audio DNA, and even when played with a non-canonic instrument, it still gives you the feeling that it's still the same game, it's still the same adventure, the same vibe and stuff like this. So, and next, I'm sorry, I hate when it's doing this. And so engaging the audience, the last block, we're gonna run through it quickly. So Foxtail OST was used in PR activities a lot. This is what you should negotiate with your clients and use the music you create as PR activities. Do podcasts about, do articles about it, do some talks like I'm doing today, use the soundtrack to promote the game. Of course, release it as DLC. This is something you can also something that you can also negotiate with the client. Release it on streaming platforms so it's easily accessible for the audience. Also, it can be bonus for sponsors, as like the team here did. They have a Patreon and some exclusive music content is available to sponsors, so they can already feel what's coming in the next chapters, even though they don't know shit about it, but they can listen to music and already imagine the feel of the upcoming chapters. Social media content, something that I showed to you, and the Discord channel is a great idea as well to engage the audience. Vlad has a separate Discord channel in this games community where he talks to the audience. They sometimes share their remixes, their reimagined versions. There was even a contest for that, so it's a great way to engage the audience more. And we also did a special video for Ukrainian Games Festival on Steam. That this video was featured on the main page of Steam for a couple days, and it was the only PR activity of that game that year because they could not work on releasing new stuff. And so by just doing this video, talking about music, this is good when there is something to talk about, I don't know the precise amount of new players, but by the amount of royalties we got from it, I can say that there were many people who got interested in a game just by listening about its soundtrack. And the ultimate reward for us, and I hope that for you it will be too, it's not the money that you get, it's the knowing that the audience appreciates what you're doing and what you created. And here the person shares that the soundtrack for Foxtail became a soundtrack of one's life. And this is, I think, what we are all aiming for. And I wish that we have more iconic OSTs. I wish that you can create an iconic shit and I wish you to be able to affect people's lives through your creativity. So thank you for your attention and for your time. And I will be glad to answer some questions. Luis, please let me know if I need to wrap the thing up, but I will start answering questions. So how would you balance out the branding or the main melody with other parts of the soundtrack so it doesn't sound overused throughout the game? If in other words, how not to overwhelm players with the same theme? Use like melodic patterns or leitmotifs is just one of the ways that you can, link everything together. As I showed you, sometimes you can use like completely different instruments, completely different melodic rhythmic patterns, but you can stay in the same key, you can stay in the same arrangement choices, you can stay in some timbre and stuff like this. So you can like literally juggle the different audio elements that you have and find ways to, to combine them. Because again, this game has more than 90 minutes of music and people don't get bored with it because it explores those elements that are featured in the main theme. It explores them in different ways. I hope this answers your question. Next. Not this. What about modes, Locrian, etc.? Does Foxtail use such changes in some contexts? I'm not sure about that, to be honest. So I fear I'm unable to answer that. Sorry. Next, I will just check here. Next question. This one we answered already. Sorry, I'm in the grandma mode. So, how does your planning, composing strategies change based on project? Example, multiplayer game with single player point and click with, say, something like a platformer. Is it? Yes. Actually, doesn't change. You still need to think about all the data you have about the game and structurize it, and basically the pipeline is the same. You need to understand which elements you will use, but again, multiplayer game has different technical aspects to it than single player point and click. So you need to understand those nuances before thinking about how you will create the soundtrack. Because, for example, for a multiplayer game, especially if it's some kind of shooting game, you don't want to overwhelm people with music, so you need to be strategic where to make it more melodic, like for example in the main menu or pause menu, and when to make it like the arrangement to make it more or less complicated, not to distract players from what's happening on the screen, but sometimes you still want to accentuate some things like battles and stuff. So you need to really understand the mechanic of the game, the stages of the game, so how, like, what experience will players get throughout it, and of course to understand the task of audio. This is something that you need to negotiate with your client. So of course this is something that you consider early on before starting working on the soundtrack itself. You need to understand, again, limitations and nuances of the game. I hope this answers your question. Next. What are some great organization tool strategies that you use when starting a project? Google Documents are great for briefs, for concepting, like concepting an audio DNA. Then if it's a big project, we, of course, Google Sheets for technical tasks. This is amazing. If it's a big project with a big scope, we use Trello to track what's need to be done, what's in the process, what needs a review and stuff like this. But sometimes we don't even use Trello. We mark the status on Google Sheets on technical tasks. So next, how would you find a solution to conflicting audio vision between you and the dev you are working with? Through negotiation, through communication. You need to have your position, and you need to know how to explain it. You need to prepare some examples. You need to prepare audio mood boards. You need to explain the reasons behind your vision, and you need to explain why sometimes what developers suggest, why it might not work. But for that, you need to do your homework on competitors and stuff like this. So only by providing facts. Usually I talk only about facts, not about like, we feel like this might be better than no one cares about what you feel. No one cares about your music intuition. No one cares about that. You need to talk facts, and and be consistent with your position. And but sometimes it's more difficult. My strategy is that if I need to insist on things, I would rather not. I will rather abandon the project if I see that the client is unable to give us to delegate the soundtrack creation to us. If he knows better or she knows better, then they can do it on their own, basically. But it's rarely the case. Next, just a sec. What was the most unique or unexpected music instrument that you used in a project, VST or real? This is not the game audio example, but for one audio brand, we did a unique, like a customized drum set, and for that we used a pack of toilet paper, and that was, I think it was a kick or something like that. So that was kind of fun. And also on one of the projects we used our dog, so that was cool as well. Would you say sync is a part of the audio DNA? 100%. Great question. All the questions are great, but this I love especially. So it should be a part that is also affected by audio DNA. This is something what we do, not usually for game audio, because indies rarely sync music, but for audio brands, when talking about audio DNA in guidelines that we provide our clients with, we specify the genres of music, the tempo of music, and stuff like this that they should look for when using other music, when listening music, basically. So audio DNA should affect audio DNA should affect the same part. So yeah, those are all questions. If you have any other, I honestly don't know if I have more time. If Lewis is in chat, oh yeah, I got up extra 20 minutes. That's great. That was what, 10 minutes ago. So we have another 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free. And I see some questions coming in. When working on a project where you are having trouble finding the sound of a project, what are some things you do to find that sound? Brainstorming. Basically, when we know everything about the game, when we know everything possible to know, because it's true that developers oftentimes don't know their audience, and this is where I have like I have really intense talks with them, so I make them make their homework, do their homework, and when we know how competitor sounds, that already give us limitations, and also it provides us with the space to experiment. And so we sit down and we brainstorm. So we brainstorm what musical codes we could use, what elements we could use, and then we compile basically like an audio mood board showing, it's not references per se, it's tracks or elements of tracks that are showing how those elements that we thought about can sound or can sound together. And we show that to our client. We have a listening party with them, and we discuss like whether some ideas we have could be a part of the project or not. And and basically again we get like the outcome is like positive and negative references, which also gives us more limitations sometimes, and also more space to experiment. So basically through brainstorming, communication with developer, and then considering what your limitations are. So through that we find our sound. I hope that answers your question. It's the first time I've heard of audio DNA. That's all right, because again, this term is coming from audio branding sphere, so it's completely fine. So is it possible to get an audio DNA documentation template somewhere to get inspiration from? Sure, I will show this slide once more. So you can basically use this as the starting point when working on an audio DNA. So mood and atmosphere, music genre, instrumentation, key, chord progressions, leitmotifs, and stuff like this. More things can come into that. All those parts you need to explain why, basically. So why piano, why harp, why strings, and stuff like this. You can, like, again, it's just a piece of audio DNA, sorry, English is not English anymore. It's just a piece of audio DNA explanation for this project, but this you can use as your starting point. And this is what I would start with. Also, you can put information on the competitors here as well, what they use, and make a list of elements that you would definitely not use and why. It's always about why, basically, why you use something, why you don't use something. So yeah, so I hope this helps. And next one, is the composer expected to do audio implementation? Unfortunately, when working with indie developers, they usually expect a composer to do everything. Sound design, implementation, everything. I am like severely against this mindset. I think that composers need to stick to composing. Getting to know how to do implementation can raise your chances to being hired by indie developers. So this is something I could recommend to you, but I'm against that thing. I think that everyone needs to do whatever they are better in. So just a sec, I will check the chat. Next, the question. Oh, not here, sorry. Any tips to not overthink a composition? How to know when to stop over composing and commit to a motif and build branches from there? Also, great question. I think my partner would would have a great chat with you about this. My partner has a life hack with it. He has a creative director in my person. So I tell him where and when to stop. For you, my tip would be do this documentation again, highlight like the task that composition should perform. Then, of course, once you're done composing and maybe over composing something, definitely save multiple versions. So save different stages. When you think that you're starting over composing, save it as a different version. I think you're doing this. I assume that you're doing this as well. And then get some rest from it, like for a day at least. Then open your documentation, open, I don't know if you work in the game, open the screenshot of the game or a video, open your documentation, open some visual thing from the game, and listen to your composition. And ask yourself whether it's completing the task that is set for the audio for this game, whether it's corresponding to all the things that we talked about this, like in this talk, whether it's fulfilling the need of not the developer of the product. And then listen to multiple versions if you have those. And I think this is how it can become easier for you to decide when to stop, because it's basically what I do as a creative director. I do this work for my partner, so I hope this will help you to not overcompose. Just give yourself those reality checks and stuff like that. So thank you for your questions. I think we have like just a couple more minutes, so maybe I can take just one more question. If not, I would love to see your feedback. It's not that I'm, asking for compliments or something, but I would love to see your feedback on the talk, whether it was clear, whether it was helpful, and so I know how to maybe make it even better in the future. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate your time and attention. And wow, the hour flew by, to be honest. That felt so quick for me. And this is a sign that we had a good time together. Oh, thank you. Like it warms my heart to see your feedback. I see that someone raised their hand, but I honestly don't know what to do with that. I'm really great. Oh, I'm really glad and grateful that it was useful for you. So yeah, don't know what to do with the raised hands. Sorry, like grandma mode all the way. So like, yeah. Yes, I hope you can use those techniques to make the process of collaboration with developers easier for yourself and for clients as well. I mean, like this is usually the main point of tension in the projects, the human factor and the communication. But I hope this will facilitate things for you as well. I can ignore raised hands. Nice. Thank you, Greg. So I think we're gonna wrap the thing up. We're perfectly on timing. So have a great rest of the conference. Thank you, Luis and Greg, for having me here. It's my second time with you. I hope I'll be back next year. I really love this event. I love everything that AOP Goals in general stands for. So yeah, thank you, everyone. And yeah, see you next year, maybe. Bye.